Next step in my journey was Darfur, a very undercovered story for a long time. Got popular for a while, and everyone in the world forgot about it. And like making images in refugee camps and places like this is, I mean, it's all there. It's like candy in a way for a kid, and it's very easy to make stereotypical images that people expect to see from Africa. And I learned that there because like these were good images to me at the time. I was still 24, but they didn't make anyone want to care because this is what people expected to see. And it bothered me a lot because I know what it was like to be there. And I know like whenever you take pictures of people, like you try and connect with them. So be like, yes, I'm here. I want to help you. And I did. And I ended up photographing this girl who had been like a victim of gang rape. I photographed these men putting a child into his grave. And they had this meeting, this elders who was like, we need your help. And like, I wanted to promise them I could help them. But like, I can't. No one even looked at these images. But they looked at these images, which is weird. And this is another one of those stories where I learned stuff about aesthetics. I had a film camera, but I only had 9 rolls of film. So I was trying to figure out how I could save film, and I started overlapping the frames, and I ended up creating this body of work, which I called storylines, which was making like not a typical panoramic, but a thematic panoramic, where it was like an idea that was a panoramic, not like an actual space. So this is portraits of refugees, but it's one film. This is a group of SLA rebels that I traveled with for 6 weeks. And that resonated more than my normal images did. So I started doing more of that. I went back to Iraq and I photographed in Iraq with the same technique. This is a unit of the nascent at the time Iraqi army praying in Sadr City. And then I went to Afghanistan. And again, like I just took this technique with me. I wanted to show something different. And I started making these like really almost very esoteric images where the overlaps created something new. And then I thought, what about really, really trying to get the whole roll of film as one picture? And this is actually an entire roll of film where I just stood in one place and photographed people walking through it. This is in Haiti after the earthquake. And this is the next one. This is probably the most successful one. This is an entire roll of film, which to me has the entire story of the Haiti earthquake in it. First part, destruction and despair. The looting and the refugee camps. Trying to exit the refugee camps. Getting, like, where they actually became homes. And I shot this one roll of film in one camera over 6 weeks. And I just wrote a Post-it note on it every time I took frames. And to me, this was like, I created one image that told one story, but it was enough. This isn't publishable in a magazine because it's like, 20 inches tall by 24 feet long. But to get people to look at it, they want to look at it because it looks different than what they're used to seeing. And that's really, I think, key to my work, and that's sort of what brought me to Iraq perspectives. Usually when you travel in a Humvee, you have your stuff and the soldiers have their guns inside, but like you leave like your clothes in a bag outside when you're driving places. So my backpack that had my clothes got blown up, and I emailed my mom and I said, Mom, can you FedEx me some pants? So I was like, I just need like normal jeans. And she's like, why can't you go to a store in Baghdad and get, like, don't they have stores? I was like, they do, but no one knew about it because it was too dangerous. And I was like, Mom, it's too dangerous for me to go out. She's like, I don't even know what Baghdad looks like because the only pictures I see from you are like, explosions and hospital rooms and, dead people. I was like, well, because that's all I get to photograph. I can't go outside. I can only photograph outside a car window. So that's what I started to do. And I thought what was interesting about these I mean, there's an obvious metaphor here about there being some weird a separation between East and West, between us and them, and this barrier that we're looking through at Iraqis. But it was also a way that, like, this is how a soldier experienced much of the land he saw in this country that he spent, 15 months of rotation on. And at the same time, I was like, these people, they're not looking at me with a camera. You can't see through all that armor. They're not looking at me as a photographer. They're looking at this convoy going past. This is their reaction to this convoy. But this was the image that made it for me. This was a concrete blast walls that surrounded the Ministry of Interior prison residential complex for lawyers and magistrates and investigators who worked for the government, because it was too dangerous for them to live in a normal neighborhood. And the only way I could have photographed this was from an armored car, because this area was completely targeted by mortars constantly. The second part of the Perspectives project actually came out of I did a lot of night operations with Special Forces teams, and obviously it's hard to take photos at night. And I would just borrow their night vision goggles, and I would use gaffer tape and dental floss to attach it to the front of my camera. Just like the Windows project was a way of looking at a country that I couldn't experience, Iraqis, there's no electricity. You maybe get 4 hours of electricity in Baghdad, and the rest of the country, there's no electricity. They don't get to see what their own country looks like at night, but I get to. I'm the invader. I get to see what their country looks like at night, and they get to be terrified. This guy was a mechanic that an informant said was a bomb maker. We just ran into his shop and woke him up in the middle of the night and arrested him.